In this session, let's cover an extremely important concept, what I like to call minimum viable audience. This is an extremely important concept because many times when you start a business, especially online, as you think you can reach anyone, people that start a business online, they tend to actually not to narrow down their possibilities. Instead, they try to look for as many people as possible so that the audience can be unlimited. While this idea might be compelling in theory, in practice it almost never works. In practice, what works instead is the ability to narrow down, to restrict your audience to what we can call a minimum viable audience. So an audience which is so small but yet small enough, so it's quite small but big enough for us to actually be able to kick off our business, to validate our hypothesis, and to actually scale up from there. This is connected to the concept of digital microniche, where you, instead of going for a mass audience first, especially when you're launching the initial version of a product, you want to go for a very small subsegment of a market, very tiny slice of a market, so that you can keep growing from there. And this has been done over again by successful companies. One interesting case, of course, is Tesla. You might never become like Tesla, but it's interesting to look at the company of the early years, as it had an ambition to actually enter the electric vehicle market, one that had very high barriers to enter. Instead of going for the full market, the company started by looking at a very small audience made of like dozens of people, where the company could ship its first prototype, like a roadster model, that could be used as a way to actually test the feasibility, and actually the feasibility of the project, but also the interest of people in the marketplace. And again, the minimum viable audience is the smallest possible audience, but big enough for us to validate our business idea and to build the first version of our product, but also to build first viable business model. It's usually it comes with the passion about the problem. And again, the passion about the problem is not always a passion about the product, meaning that you might be the person who co-founds like a company where you are in charge of understanding how to structure distribution. So it's less about the core product in this case, and more about how you can make sure that this product reaches the right people initially, and where you know that there is some market demand. So again, minimum viable audience helps us really target a very small number of people. It helps us solve an important problem to us, and it helps us really start validating the market. It's a sort of reality check that is extremely helpful to kickstart any business. And when you create this sort of minimum viable audience, that's where you kicked off your digital microniche. And as you actually validate larger and larger segments of that market, or larger and larger slices, that's when you create options to scale.